The 1970s are often seen as the decade that gave birth to the fitness industry as we now know it today. This decade saw the rise of bodybuilding to newfound fame with the film Pumping Iron. People without any idea about bodybuilding or lifting weights quickly became acquainted with bodybuilders like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Frank Zane. The bodybuilding world was moving from a confined niche to mainstream popularity. Soon, many gyms would begin springing up everywhere, providing many with the opportunity to pump iron and come day and night like Arnold.
I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific, right?
The 70s also saw the rise of aerobics. A man by the name of Kenneth Cooper wanted to understand why those who were strong could not perform well in long distance exercises like running and biking. So he began testing individuals' oxygen output as a way to test their performance on cardiovascular exercises. Based on his research, he published a book by the name of Aerobics, which gave advice on cardio based fitness endeavors. During this decade, yet another fitness trend began to emerge in the form of a game known as racquetball. Racquetball started in the late 60s as an invention of Joe Sobek, who sought to invent a faster paced version of tennis. It soon grew in popularity, resulting in racket clubs everywhere and a pro league. During this decade, the YMCA was growing in popularity and was one of the number one gyms that many would go to in order to get their exercise in. In 1978, the popular YMCA song was solidifying this establishment in lyrical history. With gyms as a whole becoming more popular, group classes became quite popular as well. Classes like group aerobics and dance workouts were favorites amongst gym goers. The 70s marked the true beginning of the fitness industry, with the birth of legends like Arnold. Fitness would become a mainstay in society. By 1980, over 70 million Americans were reported as participating in some form of exercise. In comparison, the 60s saw participation by less than 30%. Since more Americans were exercising, more gyms began to form, and this resulted in a vast variety of different companies like 24 Hour Nautilus, New York Health and Racket Club, and Sports Training Institute, to name a few. This decade saw the continuation of at-home workout videos for those that didn't want to go to the gym. You could pick from a vast array of at-home workouts like Jazzercise or Jane Fonda's Workout. Getting in shape was getting easier and excuses were becoming more minimal. All you had to do was put on a ridiculous looking leotard and sweatbands and boom, you're ready to go. To go along with your at-home workout video, perhaps you also wanted a way to do your strength training without all the weights. Well, in 1986, Bowflex created 2000X, and with it, the future of strength training. You could do all your weight training with one machine now instead of necessitating barbells and dumbbells. With bodybuilders like Arnold becoming movie stars, bodybuilding was becoming increasingly popular in the 1980s. This era saw the likes of Lee Haney become the most dominant bodybuilder of all time, and his famous phrase, stimulate, don't annihilate, will go down in history. This era of bodybuilding marked the last of the classic look, as the next decade would see mass monsters become the norm. From bodybuilding to jazzercise, the 80s was a very unique time in the fitness world. Various companies were being started, and money was being made everywhere. The 90s saw perhaps the peak of the bodybuilding scene. Bodybuilders had graduated from the classic looking golden era physique to becoming mass monsters. I'm not saying one is better than the other. However, I am simply pointing out that once Dorian won his first Mr. O title, the bodybuilding world would change forever. And this caused a downfall in bodybuilding's mainstream popularity. People could no longer envision themselves looking like their favorite bodybuilder. The physiques had become far too alien to most. Anyway, in terms of recreational bodybuilding, this decade saw participation continue to rise, and with this rise, supplements began to become popular. Despite having been discovered in 1832, creatine was just beginning to become popular. After the Olympics, the Times wrote a story detailing gold medal winner Linford Christie's creatine use. And after, this supplement's true effectiveness was realized. Since bodybuilding culture was taking off, so was the look. Spandex shorts and tights became quite popular amongst bodybuilders, and recreational bodybuilders took note and began to emulate their idols. Like all other decades, the 90s gave way to various BS fitness fads, like 8-minute abs. The notion that someone can get abs in just 8 minutes a day with no dietary intervention or any other exercise is quite absurd. However, fitness scammers aren't marketing to those who know about fitness, but instead the vulnerable and desperate who know nothing. Of the various at-home workouts, Taibo became quite popular. Daily Blanks would take you on a wild fitness journey that saw martial arts become intense aerobic exercise. During this time, Hammer Strength, a brand still popular among gym goers now, came into being. Hammer Strength was invented by the son of Arthur Jones. Arthur Jones had been responsible for the creation of Nautilus machines, but after they had been found to be a bit risky, Jim stopped using them. His son Gary Jones fixed his father's mistakes and founded a brand that would last. The 90s also saw the creation of one of the most popular fad diets, low fat. It was said that eating too much fat would make you fat. This notion led to the creation of various low-fat or non-fat products like frozen yogurt. What this type of diet failed to account for is the effect that dietary fat has on hormone levels and satiation. Recreational bodybuilding was taking off. Creatine was becoming the greatest natural supplement known to man, and workout videos were never better. The early 2000s saw a complete 180 in diet advice. Fat was no longer public enemy number one. Now the fitness gurus were going after carbs. Carbs were the enemy. Carbs make you fat. Carbs are the reason you can't lose weight. It's quite funny to see the juxtaposition of different decades. How one decade can view a particular macronutrient as being harmful, and the next decade it's God's gift to Earth. This is why consumers should always be skeptical of influencers who are selling an all or nothing approach. Various new fitness gadgets were created during the early 2000s, and among them one of the most popular, the TRX. The TRX was all you needed to perform a great calisthenics workout. Every movement you could think of could be performed with it, and it became quite popular amongst fitness-minded people. Other fitness products that came out were the famous Ab Rocket. This was a chair that you sat in and rocked back and forth to strengthen your abdominal muscles. If this was how the product had been marketed, then there would have been no problem. However, it was marketed as a way to get fit quick, and it leaves no lasting results. Marathon running became quite popular in the early 2000s. It was estimated that around 60% of recreational runners had participated in one during this time. For a runner or somebody looking to challenge themselves, a marathon is a great way to test not only physical endurance, but also your mental endurance. With the internet growing, fitness grew with it, and online forums became a way to connect with those interested in what you liked. From cycling to running, you could connect with like-minded individuals, but this became especially popular amongst those in the bodybuilding community. You can go online and have conversations about the best training routines and splits. Should I do a full body or push-pull legs? It was great for questions of training, but it unfortunately delved into darker territories like drug protocols and advice on what type of PEDs to take versus others. However, the ease of obtaining such drugs became much harder after 2004, when the US made it a Class 3 banned substance. This is when I believe the fake natural status of many began, out of necessity. People were afraid of disclosing whether or not they had used because they feared the possible repercussions of doing so. Elsewhere, in professional bodybuilding, Ronnie Coleman was dominating. He had taken Dorian Yates' mass monster look and made Dorian look like a child in comparison. In 2004, the same year steroids became a Class 3 drug, Ronnie stepped on stage weighing a whopping 297 pounds, shredded. He is the definition of alien genetics. The year 2000 also saw the founding of one of the industry's biggest jokes, CrossFit. At first, this form of fitness started off slow with just 13 participants at a gym in California, but it would go on to grow into a massively successful sport today. The early 2000s was massively important for fitness as the internet became more prominent allowing for greater growth of the fitness industry. You can now purchase your supplements online, look up popular exercises, and even hire online coaching. The value of the fitness industry was rising exponentially.